Now, we already knew prior to the Canelo Khan fight that the WBC intended to give the winner of the fight just 15 days to negotiate with the WBC mandatory Gennady Golovkin and come to an agreement or be stripped to the title. So obviously Canelo won, and behind the scenes, the negotiations between Golden Boy and Golovkin's representatives K2 have begun. And no sooner have they begun that Canelo has come out and said, tentatively, by the way, again, I'm not a Spanish speaker, but this is what the websites are reporting. They're reporting that Canelo has tentatively come out and said, I'll fight Golovkin at 160 pounds. After all this time saying that he wants to catch weight, this, that, and the other, it takes the WBC saying they're going to strip Canelo before he starts saying, you know what, maybe I'll fight at 160. Him fighting at 155 has always been ridiculous. It's always been a ducking tactic. That's what it's always been. Why else would you drain yourself when you're massive down to 155? 160 is far more comfortable for Canelo. Yeah, he's just draining himself to try and make himself look like a smaller guy, to give himself an excuse to not fight Golovkin. Well, now he's stuck between a rock and a hard place, because if he decides to vacate or allow himself to get stripped of the WBC title, he's going to look bad. But he also knows if he goes ahead and fights Golovkin and gets knocked out or beat badly, he's going to look bad. So he has to choose his poison right now. There's no way out for Canelo Alvarez. He's going to look bad regardless. But one way, he's going to look bad and escape a beating. The other way, he's going to look bad and get a beating. And when I say look bad, as I've said in previous videos before, there's no shame in losing. So to me, going in there and getting a beating by Golovkin wouldn't make him look bad, because I think Golovkin is that good. Golovkin hasn't yet proved it, but I personally think that he'll go on to prove that he is one of the greatest middleweights of all time. I think he'll go on to prove that. Maybe I'm wrong, but from what I've seen of him so far, I think he's going to go on to do that, you know. So losing to one of the greatest middleweights of all time, there's no shame in that. As long as you fight to the best of your ability and do your thing, and there's no BS involved, then, you know, there's no shame at all. So, but when I say look bad, I'm talking about from Canelo's perspective, because he's a very macho guy and he cares about his image, particularly in the eyes of his people, the Mexican people, who are a very proud people, and Mexican boxing and perhaps Mexican culture in general, I don't know, but certainly within Mexican boxing, there is a culture of machismo in Mexican boxing. Okay, it's not the technical, clinical kind of culture or the kind of image that maybe boxing in places like Germany might have to some extent, certainly around people like the Klitschko's. In Mexican boxing, it's machismo. And it's about being a macho man and having big cojones and all that kind of stuff. And Canelo understands that that's what it is. And so he wants to look like the macho man in front of his fans. You know, he wants to look like the guy who's not afraid of anybody. That's what the comments in the ring after the Khan fight were all about, talking about Mexicans. We don't F around, and we got big balls and we'll fight anybody. We ain't scared of nobody. He's playing to that macho image, that macho culture that exists within Mexican boxing. And so maybe in his eyes, he thinks, if I fight Golovkin and just get battered and knocked out, it's going to tarnish my macho image in the eyes of my fans. But then again, if I vacate the belt or allow myself to get stripped, that's also going to tarnish my image. Which way should I go? I think that ultimately, you know, it is a battle for Canelo and his ego. But ultimately, I think the fans would respect him. Actually, I'm not sure, because it depends how he's going to spin it. If he can spin getting stripped of the WBC title in a certain way, then some of his fans, regardless, are just going to support him anyway. They're not going to turn their backs on him. So I don't know. I don't know how much scrutiny the Mexican media, the Mexican sports media, are going to put on Canelo if he allows himself to get stripped. How can he spin it to make it look as though it was the right thing for him to do? Or maybe he'd be better off going into the Golovkin fight, taking that beating and going out on his shield. Maybe he'd win more respect from the Mexican people that way. I don't know. It's a balancing act, a difficult situation for Canelo and his ego, but it is what it is. So, as I say, this is the first time he's even talked about the possibility of fighting at 160, which is what he should be doing, obviously, fighting Golovkin at 160. Let's hope it goes ahead. Negotiations are underway. I hope they come to an agreement. Fight Golovkin at 160 in your next fight. I hope it happens September, and there is no question at all. I am taking Gennady Golovkin to win the fight. I'm not saying Canelo can't be competitive. Canelo is very talented. He'll probably be the most talented. In fact, he will definitely be the most talented guy that Gennady Golovkin has fought so far as a professional. But I just don't see Canelo having enough to keep Golovkin off of him. I just don't see it. I think Golovkin is better at long range. He's, I think got a better jab. Both of them are good technically, but I think Golovkin's got a better jab, operates better at long range. So if he wants to try and minimize the amount that he's taking, he could fight Canelo in a similar way to the way he fought David Lemieux, if he wants to. And if he wants to pressure Canelo and try and exploit that suspect work rate that Canelo has, he can do that too. I don't think Canelo is going to be able to hit hard enough to keep Golovkin off of him. I just don't see it. No, if Golovkin wants to pressure him and, walk him down and hit him to the body and do all the type of stuff that Golovkin normally does, I don't see Canelo going the distance. The only way I see Canelo going the distance in this fight, if it happens at 160, is, as I say, if Golovkin decides to box the same way that he boxed against Lemieux, using a jab, being cautious, being careful. If he does that, then maybe Canelo can last the distance. Even then, it will be tough, but he might be able to do it. But if Golovkin decides, you know what, I'm going to go in on you and I'm going to pressure you, then nah. Even though, it's one thing I will say, Canelo likes when fighters pressure him, normally. Okay, we saw what happened in the Kirtland fight. We saw what happened in the Angulo fight. He likes when fighters pressure him and they come at him. In fact, I was debating with somebody the other day online about what would happen in a fight between Marcos Maidana and Canelo Alvarez. And I've got no doubt at all that Canelo Alvarez would beat Marcos Maidana. I don't care which version of Maidana you bring, the best ever version. I would bet my, not my life, I bet my house that Canelo Alvarez would beat Marcos Maidana. I just think Maidana's style plays right into Canelo's hands. So Canelo does like when fighters come at him, but there are pressure fighters, there are good pressure fighters, there are great pressure fighters, and then there's Gennady Golovkin. The stuff that he does on the front foot is stuff that few other fighters can do. The way he cuts off the ring calmly, the way he picks his shots, the accuracy, the way he applies that constant pressure and keeps the punches coming, but accurately. I can't see Canelo surviving that. Even though Canelo, as I say, does like pressure fighters, I think this particular pressure fighter in Gennady Golovkin will be too much for him. But it'll be interesting to see how Golovkin approaches the fight. Will it be more like Lemieux, or will it be the typical, quote unquote Mexican style Golovkin? So I don't know. We'll see, people. Let me know what you think. Do you think this fight is actually going to take place? Do you think Canelo will allow himself to get stripped? Or do you think he's going to bite the bullet and say, you know what? I'm just going to try and beat Golovkin. I'm going to try and do my thing. If I get beat, I go out on my shield. Hopefully the fans will still love me for it, you know. But it will be a hard one because will he be able to spin the idea that Golovkin was bigger than him? Will he refuse to go on the scales, on the HBO scales? Because when they get in the ring, on the night of the fight, HBO are probably going to try to weigh them again and see what they're weighing on the night of the fight. And if Canelo is 175 and Golovkin is 172, if Canelo was to lose, he won't be able to spin it and say, well, I was in there with a bigger guy. I tried my best. He won't be able to do that. So, I don't know. Anyway, people, drop your comments in the comment section below. It's your boy Hatman. I'm out.